All right, so now we've made it past the main phase of the audit, and now we're ready to wrap up the audit. So how do we bring the audit to the finish line? The first consideration is going to be for subsequent events, which are events that happen after the financial statement date, but before we issue the audit report. So for example, if 12/31 is the financial statement date and we issue the audit report March 15th, then everything between January 1st and March 15th is going to be the subsequent event date range. So we need to identify these events because we might need to disclose them and or accrue them on the financial statements. So if an event happens in a subsequent event period, if the condition of the event existed as of year end, then we need to accrue for it. But if the condition did not exist as of year end, then we just need to disclose it in a footnote on the financial statements and not do anything else for it. So at the very beginning of the audit, we talked about how the engagement letter launches the audit. Now we're at the very end of the audit and we need to talk about the management representation letter. So throughout the audit, management is giving us different assertions, different claims about the company's financial statements. The management representation letter is where management is going to give the written representations. That way we have actual proof that management is taking responsibility for the financial statements. So this is something that management prints on their letterhead, management signs. Management's going to say they're responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements, that they're responsible for the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal controls, that they have told the auditors about any instances of non-compliance, that they've told the auditors about subsequent events. Is trying to cover all of their bases for management to say that they have fulfilled all of their responsibilities. And we can't issue the financial statements until we have the management representation letter. That is key. So now we're almost ready to issue the company's financial statements. And attached to the financial statements, we issue the auditor's report. This is going to state the most important part of our audit, which is the audit opinion. So throughout the main phase of the audit, we were acquiring all of this different audit test work. And the point of the test work was to support our opinion. Our opinion is, what do we think about the financial statements? Do they have any material misstatements in the financial statements? Can the users of the financial statements trust in these financial statements? So we're going to talk about 4 possible audit opinions and what causes the different audit opinions. So the first type of audit opinion is called an unmodified opinion. This is a clean opinion. This is the best opinion you can receive from the auditors. This means that we did not notice any material issues with the financial statements, that the users can fully trust in the financial statements. So the key phrase here is going to be, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects. So that's an unmodified opinion. So now let's talk about the other audit opinions, which is when we're modifying the opinion. So to figure out which opinion we're going to choose, we need to ask, was it a GAAP departure that caused this opinion to be modified, or a scope limitation? So a GAAP departure means that the company did not follow GAAP requirements, so they had a material misstatement. A scope limitation means we could not obtain enough audit evidence to give a proper conclusion about an area. So for example, if we couldn't do an inventory count and we couldn't perform alternative procedures, then we didn't obtain enough information about their inventory balance. That would be a scope limitation. So then we have to ask, is it a pervasive issue or a non-pervasive issue? Non-pervasive just means that it applies to a small part of the company. So if we could only not audit the inventory area, that would just be non-pervasive because it's a small part of the company. Pervasive means that it applies to multiple parts of the company, so it's a widespread issue. So with that, let's talk about a qualified opinion. So a qualified opinion can be caused by either a GAAP departure or a scope limitation, but they have to be non-pervasive issues. So a non-pervasive GAAP departure or a non-pervasive scope limitation. That causes a qualified opinion. And the key phrasing for a qualified opinion is except for, and then you mention the area that has the issue, then you say these financial statements present fairly in all material respects. So except for this one non-pervasive area, everything else looks okay. So that's a qualified opinion. So now let's talk about an adverse opinion. An adverse opinion is the worst kind of opinion you can receive from the auditors. This is only caused by a GAAP departure, not by a scope limitation. And it's going to be a pervasive GAAP departure, so a widespread GAAP departure. This is when they had material misstatements in multiple parts of the company. So you're going to say that the financial statements do not present fairly. So the unmodified was presents fairly, and adverse is do not present fairly. That is an adverse opinion. So lastly, we have a disclaimer of opinion. This is caused by a pervasive scope limitation. So in other words, we couldn't obtain enough audit evidence to give an opinion about the financial statements. So we're going to give a disclaimer of opinion showing that we're not even expressing an opinion. So that's what a disclaimer of opinion is. So now that we know about the different audit opinions, we need to think about the structure of the audit report. So what does the actual audit report look like? So I would recommend that you memorize the key structure of the audit report and what key elements it refers to. So it's a 4-part structure to the audit report for a private company. First, you have the auditor's opinion, then you have the basis for opinion, then you have management's responsibilities, and then the auditor's responsibilities. That's the structure of the auditor's report. So that wraps up our audit process. So in this series of videos, we've talked about accepting the client, risk assessment, auditing the specific areas, and then wrapping up the audit. So we've just addressed audits for private companies. In my comprehensive course, I talk about public company audits, governmental audits, and then non-audit engagements like reviews, compilations, etc. So thanks so much for watching. If I can help out with anything, you can comment below, or you can email me, Kyle@maxwellcpareview.com. Thanks so much.